Hello, this is Steve Sanangelo from the SRS Rock Report. It's Friday, and I want to talk about the massive surge of energy consumption by Bitcoin miners. Now, this is really important because how long before the public revolts against the power hungry Bitcoin mining industry? Because, folks, it's going to impact the price of electricity, especially for people in states that where there's a lot of Bitcoin mining. Now, I continue to focus on Bitcoin because it's right now it's all over 100,000. It has taken the spotlight of CNBC and social media and even the mainstream media. But I have to tell you, when you look at this information, it's very troubling. And I always look at Bitcoin at a fundamental basis. And now, Riot Platforms. It was hard to tell how much energy they used, but they did it. They actually put it in their third quarter update. And I didn't know it until I really looked at their presentation. And right here, they show in the third quarter of 2024, Riot Platforms used 1,233,531,741 kilowatt hours to produce its Bitcoin. Now, what I've done is I just divided it by 1,000 to get megawatt hours because I want to divide the megawatt hours into how many Bitcoin they produced, which is 1,104. Riot Platforms consumed 1,117 megawatt hours of electricity just to produce one Bitcoin. And if you go to the same period last year, it was only 769,519 megawatt hours, but they produced a bit more. It was only 679 megawatt hours for Bitcoin. And Riot is a little bit more expensive. I mean, they're using more energy than some of the other miners, but they're like at 750 megawatt hours, and they're going to continue to increase. Now, do you want to know how much energy is this much energy that Riot is consuming just to produce a Bitcoin? And folks, that's going to continue to increase. I've gone back to kilowatt hours because I'm trying to compare it with gold and silver, and silver is only kilowatt hours. So there is that 117 times 1,000. That's how many kilowatt hours? 1,117,000 kilowatt hours to produce one Bitcoin. A typical home in the United States consumes 11,000 kilowatt hours. Gold, to produce gold, and this is Barrick and Newmont, it's about 3,160 kilowatt hours. And to produce an ounce of silver, this is Pan American silver, which is about the same as the industry, 21 kilowatt hours. So it just goes to show you the tremendous amount of energy that's being consumed by the Bitcoin mining industry. Now, if we take this 1,117 megawatt hours that it takes to produce one Bitcoin at Riot, that would power 103 homes for a year, an entire year, 103 homes. It would produce 220 tons of steel, the same amount of electricity, same amount of energy. Now, I'm talking about production-wise here. And for gold, it would produce 350 ounces of gold. That's out of the ground. Energy to get gold out of the ground made into that doorway bar. And then it would produce one Bitcoin, the energy consumed by Riot, would produce 53,000 ounces of silver. And so this is like almost not quite double than my last estimate, but it's really going up. And if we include EVs, let's bring in EVs. If Riot produced one Bitcoin, that same energy could power 225 EVs for an entire year. It's just truly amazing. I don't think people really understand. Even though Bitcoin is going up, cryptos are going up, I still think it's a bit of a bubble. But when we understand we're going to run into energy, this is just unbelievable how much energy is being consumed. Now, what I've done here, just to go to show you, and this I think is important for precious metal investors because right now the sentiment is low. for precious metal investors due to the focus of Trump presidency and Bitcoin. If we take the same amount of energy to produce a Bitcoin from Riot Platforms, that price of Bitcoin for one Bitcoin, the market price is $100,000. Let me go back here. If I take the 350 ounces of gold, the same amount that can be produced by 1,170 megawatt hours, if I multiply it by the $2,630 market price, that same amount of energy would produce 920,000 ounces, dollars worth of gold. That same amount of energy. And then for silver, it's 1.6 million or 1,643,000. That same amount of energy will produce that much silver, or that's how much it's worth, really, when you think about it. So this is a very interesting dynamic that I don't think the market truly understands. And right now, it doesn't seem to be issue with energy. We're just adding more Bitcoin miners and facilities, and the growth is going up. But I think as time goes by, there's going to be problems with there's not going to be enough power for the Bitcoin miners. Now, this is, I've shown this chart before, but this is Riot's Corsicana facility and third quarter update. They've built 400 megawatts. Each building, it's cut in half. There's two, but they're 200 megawatts each, or if you cut the buildings in half, they're 100 megawatts. So, but by 2026, Riot is going to build here, and then two more here, which is going to be 1,000 megawatts. Let me tell you, there's an article at the end. I'm going to talk about this too. But Riot's Corsicana facility, when it's built out, producing or consuming 1,000 megawatts of power, that's the same, that would be 38% of all the power used in Austin, Texas, and the population is 1 million. The total population of Texas is 30 million. So you just have to realize how much energy just one facility is going to be using by 2026. And it's more than double, right? It's 400 megawatts. They want to go to 1,000 megawatts. That's more than double. Now, this is Riot's, they call it pipeline and miner purchases. Right now in the third quarter, it's 27 EH. It's the hashes per S, and it's going to double by about 2026, maybe into 2027. That's how quickly they're going to expand. Now, I've been talking about this. The Bitcoin mining industry is the most unsustainable, most capital destructive in the world. It's one thing if people are going to speculate into Bitcoin, and yeah, you go back, if you got into Bitcoin when it was 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, you're looking pretty now. But a lot of people don't hold on, they sell. The thing is, the Bitcoin mining industry is a disaster, because this is what Riot said in its second quarter, 2024. Fully funded growth plans through the year end 2025. This is what they said in their second quarter. And they're going to purchase 148 million for miner purchases for the Corsicana facility, which they're still building out. Now, in the third quarter, by year end 2025, now it's 338 million that they're going to add for Bitcoin miners. Now, you have to remember, 338 million in Bitcoin miners at 4,000. That's 84,500 Bitcoin miners. So they're just adding a lot of Bitcoin miners. But again, fully funded growth plans through year end. They keep saying, they said this at the fourth quarter of 23. They said at the first quarter of 24. They said at the second quarter of 24. But look at this chart. They said it in the fourth quarter of 2023, they were fully funded. But they issued 182 million in shares. And in the first quarter, they were fully funded. 194 million in new shares, and in the second quarter, 326 million. Now they have purchased a few mining facilities, like in Kentucky and all that, but it's not that much money. But 326 million, and then in the third quarter, 250 million. Third quarter, fully funded. And this is what's interesting. I looked at their SEC filings, which these Bitcoin mining investors don't even look at their SEC filings. If they did, they wouldn't be investing in these mining companies. Another 62 million was added in October, because this is, they call it the ATM, equity offerings at the market. Right here, October 2024, the company received net proceeds of 62 million for the sale of 8.1 million shares. So they're still issuing shares, and they're going to do it in November, and they're going to do it in December, and they're going to do it the next quarter. And this is just going to continue to destroy the shareholder value. So their long-term goal, I don't think it's long-term, I just think in 2 years, they're going to be 250,000 Bitcoin miners. Riot is going to move up its fleets, grow its fleets to 265,000. I think at least 250. And the price, I think, is going to continue to go up for these Bitcoin miners. But right now, the average price is about 4,000. You're talking 1 billion just in the Bitcoin miners as they build up these fleets. And I think as these companies, and I've said it, as these companies continue to build up their fleets, this is when they're going to start to get into trouble. Because I've mentioned this now, about a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, Riot Platforms actually shows that their mining equipment only lasts 2 years. And you know what's funny? They got it right. That is really the correct, realistic value of a Bitcoin miner. The lifespan, it's about 2 years, because I've shown this chart on blockchain. Paul Butler did a study and said by the second year, the 90% of the Bitcoins have been produced from that Bitcoin miner. And then in the next 3 years, you get a little more. But unfortunately, due to the Bitcoin mining industry continuing to add more fleets and more facilities, after the second year, they have to really get rid of them. They're losing money, really. So guess what? Riot actually now increased their depreciation to 3 years. And because everyone else is doing 3 years, I think CleanSpark was 5 years, then they moved it down to 3 years. But really 2 years is the correct depreciation on how quickly these mining ASICs, these mining equipment is worn out. Now, if we look, this is what's going to be one of the major problems of the Bitcoin mining industry. The gold mining industry has equipment, it has depreciation, but it's like 18% a year. 18, 15, 19. It fluctuates on the price. Right now, it's about 15, 16%. That's what the depreciation is, based on its revenues. Well, they've added, this is their mining equipment, they've added 357 million since the end of 23 in new mining equipment. But look at the depreciation. It's only gone up 110 million. But in the next 3 years, in 25, or the remainder of 24, 25, 26, they're saying 474 million is going to be depreciated out of these Bitcoin miners. And a lot of it is going to be in 2025. However, these numbers are not true, because they have to continue to replace them. Again, so this is what a 1 billion Bitcoin mining fleet that Riot will get. If they're doing 3 year straight line, it's 330 million a year. That's what they would probably show about, which would be $1 billion. But this is the realistic. It's 700 million the first year, 200 million the second, and about 100 million the third. That's really what it should be. And so they've been covering this up because they've been growing their fleets. But wait till they get up to this large number. It's going to be very difficult for them to kind of hide this depreciation. So crypto miners, came out, must register with the state and reveal power usage under new Texas rules. It didn't take long. The Bitcoin miners had a year or two to kind of grow a bit and get away with it. But Texas utility regulator on Thursday adopted a rule requiring cryptocurrency mining facilities connected to the state's main grid to register with the state's grid operator. Now, if they're connected directly to solar and wind, the Texas doesn't care, but they're all connected to the grid. And so here, as of July, ERCOT estimated that the crypto facilities on the main grid could use up to 2,600 megawatts of power, about the same amount used by the city of Austin. So think about this. Riot Platforms' 400 megawatt facility in Corsicana right now is 1/6, a little more than 1/6, a little bit more than 1/6 of all the power that's being used in Texas. And the state recently approved crypto mining facilities that are expected to use another 2,600 megawatts of electricity, and more are expected to locate to Texas soon. Right now, if they're using about 2,600 megawatts, the same as Austin, Texas, 2,600 megawatts would power about 2.3 million homes. 2.3 million homes. There's only 30 million. There's only 12 million homes in Texas right now. 12 million, 12.5 million. So if that doubles, it could power it would be powering almost the same amount of energy as 5 million homes. And there's only 12 million homes in Texas. People don't realize, the citizens of Texas, I think their power bills are going to go up. So I wanted to share this because right now the sentiment in the precious metals is low. But I think in time, I think regulators, I think the public, because do you know the price that Riot Platforms is paying is 3.1 cents a kilowatt? The average residential in the United States is like 14 cents a kilowatt. And industry is less, it's like about 8. But Riot is getting it for 3. What happens when they realize that these local policymakers, the grid, and these different local politicians and state legislators realize how much power they're using? If we see a doubling or tripling of power prices, it's going to impact Riot. The cost of production for these mining companies is going to explode. So I really think the place to be is in physical metal. And I hope you found this information interesting. I am continually shocked to see how much energy it's now taking to mine Bitcoin. One Bitcoin could power 103 homes for a year. This is really getting insane. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave in the comment section. Thank you.